There's a false sense of security that comes with locking your front door. You turn the deadbolt, hear that heavy metallic click, and your brain tells you, I am safe. Nothing can get to me now. But a lock only protects you from the people on the outside. It doesn't do anything if the threat already has a key. This happened when I was 23. I had just graduated college and moved into my first solo apartment in a relatively quiet neighborhood. It was a small, one-bedroom place on the 3rd floor. For the first time in my life, I felt completely independent. About a week after moving in, I met Mark. Mark was the maintenance worker for the building. He was in his late 30s, quiet and a little socially awkward. The first time we met, he was fixing a loose handrail in the stairwell. He offered to help carry my groceries upstairs. I politely declined, but he insisted, following me all the way to my door. He asked a lot of questions. Did I live alone? Did I have a boyfriend? What time did I usually get off work? I gave him vague answers, thanked him, and quickly went inside. I told myself he was just being a friendly, slightly weird neighbor. A few days later, the gifts started appearing. It started small. A cup of coffee from a local cafe left on my welcome mat. Then, a single red rose taped to my door. Then, a cheap silver necklace in a small unmarked box. I knew it was Mark. Whenever I left for work, I would see him standing at the end of the hallway, holding his mop or toolbox, just staring at me. He never smiled. He just watched me walk to the elevator. I was getting seriously creeped out. I caught him in the lobby one afternoon and firmly told him that I had a boyfriend, and I wanted him to stop leaving things at my door. He didn't get angry. He just stared at me with these cold, dead eyes, nodded slowly, and walked away. For 2 weeks, the gifts stopped. I thought I had handled the situation. I thought it was over. But then, things inside my apartment started to feel off. It was never anything obvious. One evening, I came home from work and noticed that my bathroom window, which I always kept shut, was cracked open about an inch. Another time, the TV remote wasn't on the coffee table where I always left it. It was placed perfectly in the center of the couch. I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. I was living alone for the first time. My mind was just playing tricks on me. But the breaking point was the smell. I woke up one Saturday morning, walked into my living room, and smelled it. It was faint, but unmistakable. The cheap, musky cologne that Mark always wore. The smell was lingering right next to my sofa. I didn't call the police because, again, what would I tell them? My apartment smells weird and my remote moved? They would think I was crazy. Instead, I went on Amazon and bought a cheap motion-activated nanny cam. It was disguised as a digital alarm clock. I placed it on my bedroom dresser, pointing directly at my bed and the bedroom door. I turned it on Tuesday morning before leaving for my shift at the hospital. When I got home that evening, the apartment looked completely normal. The locks were perfectly fine. I walked into my bedroom, took the SD card out of the hidden camera, and plugged it into my laptop. My heart was pounding in my chest as I opened the video files. There were only 3 clips. The first clip was from 8 a.m. It was just footage of me making my bed and leaving the room. The second clip was from 6:30 p.m. It was me walking back into the room to get the SD card. I felt a massive wave of relief. Nobody had come into my apartment while I was at work. I was just being crazy. But then, I noticed the timestamp on the 3rd clip. It wasn't recorded during the day. The timestamp read 3:15 a.m. the night before, while I was asleep. My hands started to shake violently as I clicked play. The footage was in black and white night vision. In the video, I was fast asleep in my bed, completely unaware of anything. For the first 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the bedroom door slowly, silently creaked open. A tall figure stepped into the room. It was Mark. He didn't have a flashlight. He didn't rummage through my drawers. He didn't try to steal anything. He walked directly to the side of my bed. He stood less than 2 feet away from my face, and he just stared at me. In the video, I shifted in my sleep. Mark didn't flinch. He just stood there, completely motionless, like a statue in the dark. I skipped forward in the video. He was still there. I skipped forward again. Still there. He stood over my sleeping body for exactly 55 minutes. Then, he slowly turned around, walked out of the bedroom, and gently closed the door behind him. I couldn't breathe. I felt physically sick. The man had a master key to my apartment. He had been coming inside while I was completely vulnerable, completely defenseless, and just watching me. How many nights had he done this before I bought the camera? I didn't pack a bag. I didn't grab my toothbrush. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, and my car keys, and I sprinted out of that apartment. I ran down the stairs, terrified I was going to run into him in the hallway. I didn't stop until I was locked inside my car. I drove straight to the police station and showed them the video. They arrested Mark that same night. When they searched his apartment, which was literally on the ground floor of my building, they found a box under his bed. Inside were hundreds of photographs of me. Pictures of me walking to my car, pictures of me through my living room window. And at the very bottom of the box was a spare key with my apartment number written on it in black marker. I broke my lease the next day. I never went back to that building, not even to get my furniture. I had a police escort retrieve my clothes. It's been 3 years. I have a massive dog now, and I sleep with a heavy deadbolt and a security chain on my door. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still expect to see him standing in the dark corner of my room, just watching me breathe. There is a very specific type of loneliness that exists at 2 a.m. For most people, it's an unsettling feeling. The world is too quiet. But for me, that isolation used to be my favorite thing in the world. My social battery was always completely dead by the end of the day. I didn't want to be perceived. So I joined a massive 24-hour commercial gym on the industrial edge of town. During the day, it was loud and crowded. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was a sanctuary. Usually, it was just me and the exhausted teenager sleeping behind the front desk. For almost 8 months, I would put on my oversized headphones and run for an hour in total peace. I felt completely invisible, until the illusion broke. I first noticed the guy in the gray hoodie in late October. I was stretching on a mat in the back corner of the empty gym. I happened to glance at the giant mirrored wall in front of me. Through the reflection, I saw him standing near the locker rooms. He was incredibly tall, painfully thin, wearing a baggy, light gray hoodie pulled up over his eyes. What immediately set off alarms in my head was what he wasn't doing. He didn't have a gym bag or a water bottle. He wasn't stretching. He was just standing perfectly still, with his hands buried deep in his pockets. And his body was angled entirely toward me. A cold prickle of adrenaline washed over my arms. I told myself to calm down, picked up my towel, and moved to the complete opposite side of the gym. 10 minutes later, I looked over my shoulder. He was gone. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. 2 weeks went by without incident. Then came a Thursday night. I was on a treadmill, running at a steady pace, staring at my own reflection in the giant, dark windows that looked out into the empty parking lot. There were 29 other empty treadmills in my row. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors of the main entrance hissed open. I saw him in the reflection, the gray hoodie. He walked past the front desk. He walked past the weights with a slow, heavy pace, straight toward the cardio section. Out of 29 empty machines, he stepped onto the treadmill exactly 12 inches to my right. I froze. I didn't stop running, but my entire body went stiff. He didn't press the button to run. He pressed the button for a slow, agonizingly casual walk. I could smell damp basement air and cheap cigarettes. I kept my eyes locked straight ahead, praying he would look at the TV screens. But he didn't. In the reflection of the glass, I saw his head slowly turn. He was staring directly at the side of my face. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. I slammed my hand on the red emergency stop button. The treadmill jerked to a halt. I grabbed my keys, jumped off, and practically sprinted to the women's locker room without looking back. I locked myself in a bathroom stall, shaking uncontrollably. When I finally gathered the courage to peek outside 40 minutes later, the gym was empty. His treadmill was still running. The next morning, I completely changed my life. I gave up my quiet nights. I started going to the gym at 6:30 p.m. right after work, when it was absolute chaos. I felt safe, surrounded by dozens of people. I never saw him, and after a month, the paranoia finally started to fade. I was so incredibly naive. It all came crashing down the week before Thanksgiving. It was a Friday night. A massive winter storm had rolled in. Because of the freezing rain, the gym cleared out early. By 8:30 p.m., the parking lot was almost completely desolate. I bundled up in my heavy coat and sprinted through the icy rain toward my car, which was parked under a flickering street lamp. Because of the cold, all the windows of my car were completely fogged up with thick white condensation. As I approached the driver's side door, I slowed down. The thick layer of condensation had been wiped away. I stepped closer, the freezing rain soaking through my clothes. It wasn't just wiped away, it was a handprint. A massive, distinct handprint pressed flat against the glass right where my face would be. And directly above it, traced perfectly into the fog, was a crude, smiling face. Someone had been standing right next to my car, waiting for me, and they had been there less than 5 minutes ago. I violently yanked the door open, threw myself inside, hit the lock button, and screamed. I jammed my keys into the ignition, my tires squealing on the wet pavement as I sped out of the parking lot. I turned my heater on full blast, hyperventilating. I checked my rearview mirror. About 3 car lengths behind me, through the heavy rain, I saw a pair of dull, yellowish headlights. I swallowed hard. I sped up to 60 miles an hour. The headlights sped up, keeping the exact same distance. My blood turned to ice water. He's following me. I remembered a survival trick my dad taught me. If you think you're being tailed, make 4 right turns. I gripped the steering wheel and took a sharp right turn onto a dark residential street. The yellow headlights made the turn. I took the second right. The headlights followed. When I took the 4th right, bringing me back to the main road, the yellow headlights were still exactly 3 car lengths behind me. This wasn't a coincidence. It was the guy from the gym. He wanted to know where I slept. I grabbed my phone and used the voice command to route to the nearest police station. I floored it. I didn't care about the red lights. I swerved through traffic, and the yellowish headlights stayed locked onto me like a missile. As I rounded the final corner, I saw the bright signs of the police station. I hopped the curb, drove directly across the sidewalk into their secured lot, and laid on my horn. I looked in my mirror. The car with the yellow headlights, an old, rusted, dark sedan, had slammed on its brakes just outside the entrance. He sat there for 3 agonizing seconds. Then, he aggressively reversed, turned off his headlights, and disappeared into the night. 3 armed police officers brought me inside. I was sobbing hysterically. I told them everything. But as I talked, a terrifying question formed in my mind. How did he know? I asked the officer. I haven't gone to the gym at night in over a month. How did he know I would be there tonight? The officer's expression turned grim. He didn't answer. He just asked for my car keys to sweep my vehicle. I sat in that room for 45 minutes. When the officer finally returned, he was holding a small, clear plastic evidence bag. Inside was a tiny, circular piece of white plastic. An Apple AirTag. It was wrapped tightly in black electrical tape, with a heavy-duty magnet glued to the back. "We found this tucked up deep inside the rear wheel well of your car," the officer said quietly. My entire world collapsed. He didn't guess my schedule. He had been tracking my location, 24 hours a day. He knew where my office was. He knew what grocery store I shopped at. He didn't follow me to find out where I lived. He already knew where I lived. He was sitting in that parking lot in the rain because his phone had alerted him exactly where I was parked. He was hunting me. The police kept my car as evidence, but the AirTag was linked to a destroyed burner phone. It was a dead end. They never found the dark sedan or the man in the gray hoodie. I broke my lease 2 days later and moved in with my brother in a completely different city. It's been almost 2 years. I never joined a gym again, and every single time I walk to my car before I even unlock the doors, I get down on my hands and knees and I run my hands along the inside of all 4 wheel wells, Because the scariest part of this story isn't the chase. The scariest part is knowing that for weeks I thought I was safe in the daylight, while a monster was quietly watching my every move.